Welcome to All Souls. Welcome to those who are online. It's great to be together. It's great for me to be back. I've only been back for a couple weeks after taking some time off, and it's just so nice to see people here in the sanctuary, to know that there are folks from all across the country, even other countries with us online. And today we have a wonderful service. Great to see some children. I have a message for our children this morning. So it's going to be a beautiful morning, and I hope that you'll take a moment to greet each other. If it's in the chat, on Zoom or Facebook, please share the link if you're on Facebook or YouTube. And for the rest of us, let us rise and greet our neighbors and say hello and begin our service together.
Please, good morning, everybody. Please stay standing. Thank you, Rod. Prayers. This is indeed a day which God has made. Let us then rejoice in it and be glad, and let us count our many blessings. We are grateful for the capacity to see, to feel, to hear, and to understand. We are grateful for the incredible gift of life, and we are especially grateful for the ties of love which bind us together, giving dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days. Please join me in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome to All Souls, where we love beyond belief.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land, by every tongue.
Please be seated. I want to say thank you to the Folks family for lighting our chalice this morning. It's Autumn and Robert Folks and their sons Tavish and Ian. They're very involved in our justice teams and with our religious education programs. You might want to be lighting your chalices at home as well.
We light this candle in memory of the courage of those who struggled for freedom,
the persistence of those who've struggled for justice, and the love of those who've built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope. Can you lift the candle?
Our theme this month is kindness. And so J. Pat Murphy and the Good Time Band is going to give you a little song called Try a Little Kindness. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
If you see your brother standing by the road with a heavy load from the city's soul, and if you see your sister falling by the way, just stop and say, can I help you on your way? You've got to try a little kindness. Yes, show a little kindness. Just shine your light for everyone to see. And if you try a little kindness, then you'll overlook the blindness of the narrow-minded people on a narrow-minded street. walk around the down and out in a helping hand instead of doubt. And the kindness that you show every day will help someone along their way. You've got to try a little kindness, just show a little kindness, just shine it out for everyone to see.
Is that good?
And if you try a little kindness, then you overlook the blindness of the narrow-minded people on a narrow-minded street. You've got to try a little kindness, yeah, show a little kindness, just shine it out for everyone to see. And if you try a little kindness, then you overlook the blindness of the narrow-minded people on a narrow-minded street.
All right. Thank you, J. Pat Murphy and Jordan Hale and the Good Time Band. The Good Time Band. I love it. So I said I had a message for our children this morning. And so are there any children here? I see a few. All right. Some hands. I see some out there. All right. Hey, I know you. So here's the thing. Sometimes people will ask you, where does your church find God? Or you might want to say the good, and that's okay if some people say it that way. But where does your church find God? Now, in our church, historically, it begins with the story from the Bible of Moses. And if you know about Moses, Moses was a Jew in Egypt, and all the Jews were slaves. And in the Bible, it says that God helped the Jews to escape from slavery. So we, Unitarian Universalists, have always seen God in those movements for freedom. When people are trying to be free, we see, that's where we can find God or the good in history. Again, another time, later, there were Christians, people who followed Jesus, who were not allowed to practice their religion. The Roman Empire tried to stop them. Other kings have tried to stop certain Christians from practicing their religion. We've always said in our church that the Christians, God was with the Christians who were trying to freely practice their religion, not with the popes or the kings who were trying to stop them. Another example, you may have heard about these names before. Tell me if you have. Galileo, Copernicus. You heard those names? Okay, some of the adults have heard those names. Okay, good to see that.
Very nice.
So these scientists were looking up at the stars, and this was a long time ago, and they said, you know what? We're pretty sure that the Earth is circling the sun, not the sun circling the Earth. But the Pope didn't like that. The church didn't like that. They tried to stop these scientists from teaching and learning about the stars. Our church was with the freedom of the scientists to practice science and to follow the learning, even if it questioned something in the Bible or something in their faith. So the point is that when we've been asked in our church, where do you find God? There's two good answers you can give. Where there is love and where there is freedom. Where there is love and where there is freedom. So speaking of love and freedom, it's time for you to go to Sunday school. So I invite you to rise and follow your Sunday school teachers out to your classroom. It's great to have you with us this morning. So I have a reading this morning from the author Solomon Rushdie. It's been in the news a lot recently. Now, when he came to Tulsa, I need to tell you a little bit of this background. In 2017, he came during Banned Books Week. And he was originally supposed to speak at the University of Tulsa. They received pressure, apparently from alumni, to not have him speak because he's controversial. And so they decided to disinvite him. So Booksmart Tulsa, who had invited him, went to the other universities here in Tulsa. Nobody wanted to have Solomon Rushdie speak at their university, so we went to the library, and the library didn't want them to speak. So finally, they came to All Souls. Yes. And we said, yes, absolutely. And after that, Solomon Rushdie told Booksmart Tulsa, if he ever comes to Tulsa, he wants to speak here, where we gave him the freedom to speak when nobody else would. He came back in 2019. He spoke right up here in the chancel. And it is my hope and expectation that no matter what this congregation is going through, that we will always open our doors to him and to other people trying to express their understanding of truth with integrity and peace. May we not shy away from controversy, especially when it involves a denial of freedom. Solomon Rushdie wrote, "People can do bad things with free speech, as well as good. You have to defend the Ku Klux Klan as well as Martin Luther King Jr. It's like that. If you're going to defend the principle, then you have to defend people who use the principle badly. Very often in free speech cases, you find yourself defending material that you personally detest because, of course, it's no trick to defend the free speech of people you either agree with or who don't particularly upset you. It's when people really upset you that you discover if you believe in free speech or not. Do you believe in free speech?
Together we come in care and concern, intention and prayer for one another. We are reminded that in times of darkness and difficulty, times of uncertainty and struggle, there will always be a light that will show us the way and remind us of the resiliency of hope and the abundancy of love. We light a candle for the family and friends of David Laughlin, who transitioned this past Friday. We light a candle for Emma Carter's friend, Amy Ray, an instructional coach with the Broken Arrow Public Schools, who is beloved by her colleagues. She's in the ICU, and they're hopeful for a full recovery. Stephen Freeman asked that we light a candle for his mother, who's going through health issues. Larry Cochran asked that we light a candle and prayers for his wife, Deb, her continual struggle with COVID and its after effects. And Giacomo Tesaro said he would like prayer again for his UU brother Leon from Rwanda, who's experiencing great distress as a refugee. A candle for anyone having difficulty in relationships, especially with family, from Jenny Jackson. A candle for Colleen Beal. And for all those who are suffering the effects of COVID. Light a candle. You are encouraged now to name aloud someone you wish to include in this sacred moment. We light a candle for all the precious names spoken and those unspoken, yet remain in our hearts. I invite you now to stand in memory or mourning in honor of a loved one you've lost in the past year, or for whom this is the closest Sunday to the anniversary of the loved one's death. And please remain standing for a moment of silence before the prayer. Great God, mighty Spirit, God who gives answers to the questions of life, but who also asks questions of all of our answers, the what ifs and the why nots. Heal us, O God. Restore us. Give us a spirit of resilience that we stand in times of struggle and uncertainty. We are a thankful and humble people, thankful for all knowledge and intuition and understanding that makes us free. Free. Such freedom that lights the world. All that we are and the good that we do, it is love that completes us, that compels us. It is our love that produces the miracles. May our mouths and hearts and our lives be satisfied with the good things that love produces. And may we have the freedom to always embrace it. Thank you. Amen and blessed be.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Sing it with me now. When I breathe When I breathe out, I breathe out. When I breathe in, when I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out.
If you woke up this morning with your mind stayed on freedom, then please take your hymnal and look at number 153. And I see you doing it. Number 153. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom.
Why don't you put those hymn books down and clap your hands? Come on. Morning with my mind stayed on. Oh, I woke up in the morning. There we go. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. One more time. Here we go. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We'd love to hear your voices. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on. Oh, we hear you. You sound so good. Stayed on free. Well, I woke up this morning. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
All right. All right. Hallelujah. All right.
Absolutely.
I know.
What can you say?
Yes.
There you go.
All right. Woo. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Speaking of freedom, there's a story about a Russian and an American who were having a conversation about free speech. And the American is explaining about how free speech works in our country, kind of bragging a little bit. He said that he could walk right up to the White House with a big sign yelling, "President Biden is corrupt and must go," and nothing would happen to him. The Russian said in his country it's the same, that he can go right up to the Kremlin with a sign yelling, "President Biden is corrupt and must go," and nothing will happen to him. However, in Saudi Arabia, they say free speech isn't really free. It costs an arm and a leg. Ooh, that's not really that funny. Because it's true. It's true. And I know we don't want to live in a nation like that, under any kind of theocratic rule, autocratic rule. So I ask you, is there a cause that you would risk dying for? Are there people that you would give your life for? Maybe your own family members, maybe a child, maybe an elderly person being harmed on the streets. I can't help but think of all the people who've given their lives to defend this country over the centuries and our freedoms. Hopefully none of us will ever have to die for our freedoms, as scores of Ukrainians are doing right now for their freedom. But let's remember that there are about 1.5 million Americans in the active U.S. military and 1 million reservists, many of whom have volunteered to be willing to die if called upon for what this country stands for. There are thousands of security officers, police, and others who carry guns and are willing to put their lives in harm's way any day so that people like me don't have to carry a gun. So that when I see something bad happening, I can call them to come to deal with it, so hopefully I don't have to. Is there anything that you would be willing to die for? As you know, Solomon Rushdie, the author who's spoken on this chancel twice in this past decade, was violently attacked last week while delivering a speech not that different from things he said right here. He's been living under the threat of assassination since 1989 for a novel that he wrote that, albeit a work of satiric fantasy fiction, it was considered by some Muslims to be blasphemy against the Muslim holy book, the Quran. For that, the Ayatollah Khomeini, supreme religious and political leader of Iran, put a fatwa, an order of assassination, on his life and a bounty of $3 million for anybody who would kill him. Rushdie lived in hiding for a decade before returning to public life. But he never knew if a waiter in a restaurant or a person walking down the street might decide that they were going to be the one to put a dagger in his heart or a bullet in his head. For what? For a novel. It's hard to imagine what that's like. I can recall when I was in seminary back in the 90s, my friend Lori asked me if I would help her to move a desk from an office building in the city to her home. We parked in an alley behind the building where we were picking up the desk, and it was a somewhat rougher neighborhood in Boston than where we went to seminary. And Lori and I proceeded to walk through the alley. And then I noticed up ahead of us, there were 3 20-something white guys standing together, talking and fooling around. I felt my heart start pounding. I felt my body started to feel weak. It was because my friend, Lori, was very noticeably transgender. Back then, her typical outfit included long hair, combat boots, a shirt with a tie, and a beard. Here I was, walking side by side through an alley in a fairly desolate part of Boston with someone whose appearance could definitely cause us to be harassed or worse. I'll be honest, I suddenly felt really scared for my life, for my health, for my well-being, and for Lori's. I felt so incredibly vulnerable to the prejudices and fears and bravado of those young men in front of us. Would they push us around, beat us up, call us names, or hopefully just ignore us? All these thoughts were running through my mind. It hit me that Lori must feel this way a lot of the time while walking through the world, just being herself. Would you risk dying or harassment to be true to yourself, as my friend Lori does? Did you know that some years during our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, more trans people were murdered in America than soldiers were killed in war? And that doesn't account for the many suicides and suicide attempts of trans people, which for those under 25 years of age has been as high as 40% in a given year. What would you die for? Anything? It's a tragic truth that our transgender siblings and children, in effect, have to be willing to die just to be free to be themselves. Freedom of expression, be it literary, like in the case of Solomon Rushdie, or personal in the case of a person whose gender does not fit neatly into the cultural binary. Freedom of expression is a core liberty written into the Declaration of Independence and enshrined in our Constitution. It says that we hold these truths to be self-evident, given to all humans by their Creator, that all people are created equal and have the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's worth noting that according to our founding documents, these are not rights given by a government or by any laws. In our national documents and tradition, these are inalienable and given not by laws or government, but by our Creator, it says. They are a right of birth given equally to all. And the United States government and our laws are expected to protect them, but they don't grant them because they're inalienable and they're for everybody. Now, despite anyone's misgivings about the history of America, it is a profound and remarkable fact that we live in a country that is premised on the supposition of such equality and liberty for all. Now, we're still figuring out how to live into and live up to it. But the fact that we live in such a nation right now is not to be taken lightly. Which brings me to our problem. It's bad enough when the supreme leader of a theocracy in Iran calls for violence against a novelist. But when our own citizens and our own politicians use language that puts a target on the backs of the FBI, IRS agents, the vice president, poll watchers, Capitol police officers, school board members, transgender people, that needs to be called out by politicians, by preachers, by police officers, and by people of all walks of life. But I'm speaking in church this morning. And some say it's one of the premier Unitarian Universalist churches of this country. So how is this our struggle? And is it really a religious or a political issue? Now, as I told the children in our message this morning, When Unitarian Universalists try to answer the question, where is God? Or where is the good, if you will, if you prefer, in human history, we have pointed to the unfolding of freedom. We have what theologians call, with a fancy word, a hermeneutic of freedom. You can impress your friends now with that word, a hermeneutic. It's what we use to interpret the world. Our forebears point to the freedom of the Jews and anyone else from slavery. Where was God in these stories? God was with the slaves. The good was with the slaves, not the slave owners. We see it in the Christians striving for freedom to practice their religion as they see fit from Romans, from kings of England, or anywhere. We see it in the history of movements for freedom for women, for African Americans, for Native Americans, for gay, lesbian, transgender Americans, and people all over the world. The he's, hers, and they's of this religious tradition have again and again across the centuries struggled and even died for the equality and freedom of all. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been notable exceptions, and we have had our own internal battles about these issues, and we still do. But for those who have lifted the banner of Unitarian Universalism in its most enduring ways, they have done this not as a political or legal issue, but as a core calling coming from their moral conscience and from that sense of inalienable rights that belong to every person by virtue of their birth. Now, if you were here last Sunday and you heard my message, I talked about how I've really been on a very powerful and serious spiritual journey these last few months, and I am looking forward throughout the course of this year sharing with you that journey and various ways to stay grounded in our core sense of self and in our world, in the world around us, in my preaching and my teaching this year. But occasionally, like this morning, I will offer a message with moral clarity that will have implications that are political. But hear this. These issues may play out in the political realm, but what's at stake is beyond what governments or laws have the right to give or take away. These issues are issues of human dignity that transcend politics. These are inalienable rights. And even though they must play out in the political realm, they're about something much more than politics. For those school boards trying to ban books, have you been reading about this? It's crazy what's going on out there. And legislatures, like here in Oklahoma, trying to sanitize history so that nobody feels uncomfortable. What is that? It's like craziness. Nobody feels uncomfortable. You talk about the history of slavery, well, how the Native Americans were treated. I mean, go on and on. Nobody's supposed to feel, I hope you feel uncomfortable when you hear that history, and we need to tell our history. And those legislatures who are creating battles over bathrooms and sports, and who are passing laws to limit the rights of women over their own body. From this pulpit, when it is needed, we will call it for what it is. And it's wrong. And it's un-American, and it goes against our traditions of democracy, liberal democracy in this nation. And I want to say this is not a partisan issue. The extreme progressive left in recent years has also been denying freedom of speech at times in their own heartfelt but misguided attempt at creating a version of earthly perfection, keeping people from speaking at universities, canceling comedians and others for freedom of expression. As Solomon Rushdie has said, you must be willing to defend material that you personally detest Because of course it's no trick to defend the free speech of people you either agree with or who don't particularly upset you. It's when people really upset you that you discover if you believe in free speech. And I'm telling you, if we give up on freedom of speech now, wait till a theocratic, what do they call it, Christian nationalism takes over the government, and then try to fight for free speech. If you don't allow the freedom of speech of people who you disagree with now, it's going to be your speech the next time. So it's so important, and you can tell I'm a little worked up about it. I'll never forget the words of a 70-year-old woman from this congregation. A few years ago, she said to me, "Marlon, I don't agree with everything you or the other ministers say from this pulpit. But I'll tell you one thing, I would take a bullet to ensure that you have the freedom to say it." I appreciate it. May our days upon this earth be surrounded by peace. Peace, peace, peace be upon us. And may violence in the name of politics and religion or anything else be anathema. But today, if we want to keep our freedoms, it means voting, protesting, showing up at school board meetings, running for public office, because we either hold this battle on the battleground of politics and democracy, or who knows what comes next. May we be a people, and may this be a pulpit forever dedicated to freedom in the best, if often unrealized, tradition of America. God bless you. I love you. Amen. And now let us join in singing together hymn number 121 from our hymnal.
We'll build a land where we bind up the
and thank you, Reverend Marlin, for that message. I really needed that message today, so thank you very much. And if you want to continue that conversation about freedom and this free, liberal, religious tradition, join me today at 11:30 in room 112. It's the third and last class of our foundation series, and it's very much what we're going to be speaking about. Great way to meet other members, people on this journey towards a free faith. And if you're interested in exploring really how to live that free faith on a day-to-day basis, you might want to consider getting involved with Wellspring this year. Wellspring are small groups. You do some deep listening. Involves a daily spiritual practice, having a spiritual companion, and really getting a deeper understanding of the evolution of this free faith, which is so intimately involved with the evolution of our country. That retreat is 1 week from today in the afternoon. Corey Lovell's the person to talk to about more information, and you do need to attend the retreat to participate in one of the small groups this year. And if you are furious, the way I am furious, and I know many of the women in this congregation are furious about Roe being overturned, and many men in this congregation are equally furious, you might also want to join me and many others today at 3 o'clock as our freedoms are being constrained or taken away from us in room 112. It's our All Souls Reproductive Justice Team meeting. Please mark September 11th for our Homecoming Sunday. And our offering today goes to Just Hope, an organization that fosters cultural understanding between communities in the United States and Nicaragua. We've had member leaders in this congregation working with member leaders at Fellowship Congregational for many, many years, involved in this ministry, empowering people, increasing global understanding. If you'd like to make a donation to the church, please use one of the white envelopes in your pew back, and we'll now gratefully receive this morning's offering.
Yeah, Mike McCrary on the organ. It's great to have you back, Mike. Mike officially retired as our organist, but we're going to bring him back every chance we get to play, and it's great to have you here, Mike. I don't want to leave. I don't know about you. Maybe you're ready, but I want to just stay and be with you all day long and talk about this stuff and think about how we can make the world better together. It's joy to be with you. I do want to say one thing. I realize sometimes when I talk about issues like transgender issues from the pulpit that I really want to reassure anybody that I understand how complicated these issues are to try to understand, especially right now in our world. I've been talking to different people who have grandchildren who are, trying to understand their gender or coming out as transgender or gay and lesbian. And so I do want to say I don't want anyone to ever feel unsure about coming to talk to one of our ministers about what you're going through, to ask questions and to not know the answers and to to be confused or upset or anything like that, that we really are a non-judgmental presence to talk to folks about these issues. It can be hard sometimes to do it in public. It can be hard sometimes to do it with our family members. So sometimes it's just nice to have somebody who you know cares. They're not going to question, are you a good person or something like that, because you have questions about things like transgender sports or other kinds of things, or what's happening. There's so many genders being talked about now, or pronouns. So anyway, it's an important conversation, and if you're wrestling with it in your heart, I don't want anyone to feel silenced. It's really that idea about freedom of speech. We need a chance to speak with each other, but it can be helpful to do that with a trusted partner rather than in a big group of people where some people might get hurt or offended in the process, including you if you feel attacked. So I think it's real important, and I look forward to talking to anybody about those issues, and I know my colleagues here do too. As we go forth, because we can't stay here all day, as we go forth into this week, I hope that if you have a chalice at home, we're going to extinguish our chalice in a moment. You can extinguish yours. If you're online, I invite you to stay with the online group on Zoom and talk and visit and make some new friends and welcome folks into All Souls. If you're here, if you're a visitor for the first time, we have a gift bag out there for you. I hope you'll take it, and we'd like you to have that. And stick around. We have coffee and tea and refreshments in our Alliance room and people kind of hanging out around the foyer. I look forward to greeting you at the door. And with that, let me say, may your eyes see beauty, may your lips speak truth, may your heart know love, and may your hands do the good works of this world all the days of your life. Go and be blessed and be a blessing. Amen.